I'm going to begin with a Wilton silicone textures mat, and I'm going to start with the wooden texture mat first. I'm going to take about 3 different shades of brown fondant and roll it into a ball and just place this right on top of the mat. And using a rolling pin, I'm going to roll this out nice and flat. It is okay if you have to rotate it, seeing as we're only going to use the other side, so make sure that you get it to the size that you need. Then using a round cutter, I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out. And here we have one of our first bases. I'm also going to make a gray stone base. And then I have a couple of just plain bases. This one is beige and I have about 2 burgundy. So I'm just going to begin by making a Nimbus 2000. I'm going to start with like an oval piece of fondant and I'm just going to shape it and mold it so that it looks like the tip of the broomstick. And then I'm going to take some more brown fondant and I'm going to roll it out nice and thin to be the handle of my broom. And I'm just going to give it a little detail to make it look more like the Nimbus. I'm going to clip off both of these ends. I'm going to roll the tip of this one nice and thin, and I'm going to flatten the other end. Using the end of a paintbrush, I'm just going to add a tiny hole into the tip of my broom. And with a little bit of water, I'm going to go ahead and attach the broomstick to the broom. I'm going to use the end of my fondant tool and I'm going to create a little detail to make it actually look like the broom. And then with some yellow fondant, I'm going to add some of the metal detailing that was on the Nimbus. And now I'm just going to attach this to a burgundy base with a little bit of water. And I'm going to add a couple of star sprinkles for decoration. Now now it's time to work on the sorting hat. So I have a nice cone-shaped piece of chocolate fondant right here, and I'm just going to shape it into the silhouette of our sorting hat. And using the end of my paintbrush again, I'm going to add some of the detailing to make it look like he has a face. And now I'm going to take a small piece of fondant and I'm going to roll it nice and flat, and using the end of a piping tip, I'm just going to cut out a little hole. And I'm going to place this over the sorting hat like a shirt, and I'm going to work it down with my fondant tool. Now I'm going to take another round cutter and clip off the excess, and then using the end of my paintbrush again, I'm going to make this look a little bit more like a hat. I'm going to add this to a burgundy base. Now we're going to start working on some house scarves. So I already have some yellow fondant rolled out, and I'm just going to take a square punch to indicate where I want to cut off the excess fondant. And then I'm going to take that same square punch and some really thin burgundy fondant, and I'm going to add on a couple of squares. You can actually do this for all the house scarves. Then I'm going to take my fondant tool, add some detail, and then I'm going to gently fold this over. And this is going to go onto a wooden base today with a little water. And I'm also going to add a little wand. And there we go. Now we're going to start working on a cauldron, and I'm just taking a little black fondant and I'm rolling it into my hands into like the most perfect ball ever. And then using a baller tool, I'm just going to apply a little pressure right in the middle. And I'm going to place this in the palm of my hand and just kind of roll it around. This is going to hollow out my ball and make it like kind of empty inside, so it'll be a cauldron. Then I'm going to take a teeny snake of black fondant. And I'm just going to put this around the rim of that hole. And then using a little bit more black fondant and a number 12 tip, I'm going to cut out 2 little circles. And then using the end of this guy right here, I am going to snip off a little bit of that to give a handle. And then I'm going to apply that with a little water right onto our cauldron and set this aside. Now we can start working on some potions. So I have a little ball of purple fondant, and I'm just going to roll that in my fingers and press along the bottom to shape it into a little beaker. And using my balling tool, I'm just going to add a little indent on the top. And I'm going to fill this with a little dot of brown fondant. And just to make it nice and flat, I'm going to tap it on the table. And there we have a little beaker of potion. The last thing we're going to work on is a couple of books. I already have some white fondant rectangled and ready to go. And I'm going to take some brown fondant and roll it out really thin. And I'm just going to place that white rectangle on one side and cut off the extra. And there we have a book. I'm going to use my fondant tool again to add a little binding, and now it's time to put everything together. So I'm going to add some beakers onto a stone base. And then we have a little book that I'm going to add, and this one is labeled Potions. And for this one, I'm just going to add on my cauldron and my standard book of spells. I'm going to add a little water in my cauldron and a brown piece of fondant for a spoon handle. And then I have some green little fondant balls that I'm going to add in as my potion brew. And lastly, we have the I Solemnly Swear cupcake. I made this one using the Lolita app, and I added a few sprinkles.